The awarding of a lucrative contract to Brads Gaming Company by the Barrow administration in mid-2020, roughly 5 months before the last general elections, was not without controversy. The exclusive agreement to be in charge of the nightly Boledo, as well as the Sunday lottery draw, collectively known as Government Lotteries, carries a 10-year lifespan which expires in 2030. The fate of that arrangement, just 2.5 years into its duration, hangs in the balance amid what appears to be the current administration's intent to have the contract revoked.
We all know that they've been after Brads from the time of the previous contract, which is or was with a different company. Before the elections, they had made no secret of the fact that that new contract that was given to the second incarnation of Brads in April or so of 2020 was very much in their sights in opposition. They had said publicly that when they get in, they would do something about the contract.
When the House of Representatives met in July 2020, several weeks after the contract had been signed, the matter was tabled but excluded from debate. In parliamentary language, this is referred to as a negative resolution.
What is most cowardly is the way this has been presented in the National Assembly. It was presented as a paper for negative resolution, meaning in effect that the Prime Minister has set this on in the House, that it has been tabled, and nobody can speak about it. We cannot debate it. In effect, he is giving not one middle finger, but two middle fingers to the people of this country, where he is refusing to have an open debate on a contract that has created a lot of controversy, a contract that this company has potential revenues of over $500 million over the life of the contract for 10 years.
The People's United Party criticism of the alleged cronyism that was involved in the awarding of the contract came at a time when public attention was focused primarily on the COVID-19 pandemic. Nonetheless, the opposition vowed that once it took office, the controversial contract would land squarely in its crosshairs.
So I want to in effect, inform the government that we will be taking legal action. We'll be looking at it we're going to have our legal advisors to take a look at this and see whether this was legal or not. But also I could assure you that once we get into government, we are going to go through this contract. So I am alerting Mr. Brads and his partners to be careful how much money they want to give to the UDP, because they are going to lose their money, because this is not going to be left the way it has been set or structured by the UDP government. We got a copy of the ownership of the company, the shares, and you see that Brads has 40% or 4,000 shares. And then there's a company by the name of Goodley that owns 6,000 shares. So in effect, Goodley owns 60% of the Belize Boledo.
At the time, former Prime Minister Dean Barrow was tight-lipped on the matter, and mum was the word from cabinet. 2.5 years later, the shoe is on the other foot, and he's back to private practice as an attorney representing Brads Gaming Group Limited, an iteration of Brads Gaming Company. He also represents Countach Technologies Limited. In his capacity as legal counsel, I inquired about Goodley's connection, if any, with Countach, another shareholder in Brads.
I don't know of any connection between the two. I don't know anything really about Goodley, and that is the trap that the Prime Minister, in my view, fell into. Generally, what happened with the first 10-year license, who the players were in terms of the investment vehicle, Brads Gaming Company, as it was then called, and Goodley. It seems to be clear that Goodley was some investor in the company. But Isani, that has nothing to do with the new license and the new company. And so when, as you see in the Countach letter, we had to say to the Prime Minister, how can you, in fact, in the media interview you gave, Mr. Prime Minister, talk about all that, according to you, the licensee, the company that had the first license, which ended on 31st March of 2020. How can you now suggest, or in fact declare, that the new licensee should be adjudged guilty of what you say are the sins of commission and omission committed by the previous licensee?
According to Prime Minister John Briceño, his administration is not being hasty. In fact, government's attorneys, he says, are being careful.
Unlike the previous government, we are being meticulous in what we do. We are not acting out of malice. We are not acting out of spite. We are just looking at the interests of the Belizean people. And we are seeing that there are areas where we believe that they have not complied. But again, we need to wait to see what our legal team is going to advise us.
In the letter from earlier last week, that was a response, a rejoinder to the letter that was sent by the chairperson of the Lotteries Committee. In a sense, all the points, the respective points that were raised in the letter of December 23rd were batted down as either untrue in terms of perhaps some of the claims that were put forward as concerns or what have you. Where are we with that in terms of those particular line items that are of concern?
Well, we haven't had any response to our letter from CEO Garcia as chairperson of the Lotteries Committee. But you're absolutely right. We believe that when you read their letter and when you read our response, you'll have to conclude that 90% of the allegations they make, 90% of the breaches that they accuse Brads of, 90% is without merit. There are some minor instances in which indeed you can say that there was an omission on the part of Brads.
But is the revocation of the Brads contract, even with PM Briceño's prudence, simply a foregone conclusion? Interestingly, in a recent conversation with the Minister of Health and Wellness, he echoes a position taken by the Belize Business Bureau, a private sector organization that is seemingly pro-PUP.
If we ever take over the Boledo, do we put those funds to program NHI, or do we look at a syntax that will be able to go geared towards NHI?
Reporting for News 5, I am Isani Cayetano.